She said, "If you take that job, we are done." "I am not leaving Chicago," I said. "Then we are done." Months later, she is facing a small claims judge crying about emotional damages while I am sitting in my Seattle corner office, watching the stock options I earned hit their first vesting milestone. I am Ryan, 30 years old, data analyst turned director of analytics, and I am writing this from my new apartment with a view of Puget Sound, because apparently choosing my career over an ultimatum makes me the villain in someone else's narrative. Look, I need to get this out because what happened after I left Chicago is honestly insane, and I am still processing how someone I lived with for 3 years turned into a completely different person the moment I stopped letting her control my decisions. So here is what went down. 5 years together, Claire and I, 3 years living together in her dream apartment near her job, her parents, her Barra studio, basically her entire universe. I loved her, I really did. But looking back now, I am realizing how much of my life had slowly gotten reshaped around what Claire wanted. The apartment we chose had to be walking distance to her work, our vacations, always visiting her family in Wisconsin or her college friends in Minneapolis. Even the car I bought last year, she vetoed the Honda I wanted because it wasn't safe enough and pushed me toward the Subaru because her dad said Subarus hold their value. I didn't think much of it at the time. Relationships are about compromise, right? Plus, Claire always had really good reasons for her preferences, and she would get this hurt look when I would suggest alternatives. Like I was being selfish for even bringing up what I wanted. Then this director position opened up at a health tech startup in Seattle. Machine learning applications for patient outcomes, equity package, salary jumping from $82,000 to $210,000. I mean, this was life-changing money. The kind of opportunity that comes maybe once in a career. When I told Claire about the interview, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "You are not seriously considering this." I said, "I was definitely considering it. This was my field, my expertise, my dream role." That is when she dropped the ultimatum. "If you take that job, we are done." I am not leaving Chicago, my friends, my Barra studio, my parents. They are all here. If you loved me, you would stay. I tried to compromise. Long distance for a year while she figured out a transition. Flying home every month. Hell, I even offered to rent 2 places so she could visit whenever she wanted. She refused everything. It was ultimatum or nothing. That night, lying awake next to her, something clicked. This wasn't about the job. This was about the fact that in 5 years together, every major decision had gone her way. And now when something mattered this much to me, she wasn't even willing to discuss alternatives. I realized I had become someone who needed permission to pursue opportunities in my own career. So I made my choice. Without telling Claire, I accepted the position, quietly found a sublease in Seattle through a company contact, arranged for movers to pick up my personal stuff while she was at work, left behind all the furniture we had bought together since it was mostly her taste anyway. The morning I left, I put an envelope on the kitchen counter with 2 months' rent, my key, and a letter that said, "You told me if I took the job, we were done. I believe you." Here is where it gets weird though. I thought this would be hard but straightforward. I expected tears, maybe some angry texts, probably some mutual friends taking sides, normal breakup stuff. What I didn't expect was for Claire to completely rewrite the entire history of our relationship and launch what I can only describe as a systematic campaign to destroy my reputation. But that is another story for another update. Because right now I need to go prep for tomorrow's board presentation, and honestly, writing this out has made me realize just how much I was walking on eggshells before. The view from my new life is pretty amazing though. Update 1 Reddit. I was not prepared for this level of crazy. First, thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. Reading your responses made me realize I wasn't losing my mind. And honestly, I needed that validation because the past week has been absolutely bonkers. So I am settled into corporate housing in Seattle. The new role is incredible. My colleagues are smart and collaborative, and I am already contributing to projects that could genuinely improve patient outcomes. This is exactly the kind of work I have wanted to do since grad school. But back in Chicago, Claire has apparently decided that since I am not there to control anymore, she is going to control the narrative instead. It started with Instagram stories. Crying selfies with captions like sometimes you realize the person you thought loved you was just using you, and 5 years of supporting someone's career just to be abandoned when it is convenient. Then came the posts about being financially abused by someone who drained our joint savings and left me with nothing. Now, here is the thing that is making me absolutely furious. We never had joint savings. We split everything 50-50 the entire time we lived together. I have Venmo receipts, bank statements, everything. Claire insisted on keeping finances separate because she said it was more modern and independent. But her version of events is that I was some kind of financial parasite who lived off her generosity and then abandoned her the moment I got a better offer. Her parents started calling me. First, her mom, crying about how Claire is devastated and financially destroyed. Then her dad emailing me demanding I send Claire $40,000 as a transition settlement because I benefited from her emotional labor and household contributions. I ignored them. But then Claire escalated. She showed up at my mom's house. My mom, who lives 2 hours outside Chicago and has nothing to do with any of this. Claire sat on the porch crying for 3 hours. Telling my mom that I was emotionally abusive, that I isolated her from her friends, that I controlled her finances, basically painting herself as the victim of some elaborate manipulation scheme. My poor mom called me totally shaken, asking if there was something about our relationship she didn't understand. That is when I sent her the screenshot of Claire's ultimatum text, the one where she explicitly said if I took the job we were done. My mom read it and immediately said, "Oh honey, she lied to me about everything. But here is the part that really gets me. Our mutual friend Emily texted me yesterday with information she thought I should know. Apparently Claire has been telling people that I drained our joint savings account and left her financially ruined. Emily asked Claire for details, and Claire claimed I had access to her personal account and took money without permission. But when Emily pressed for specifics, Claire got defensive and changed the subject. The thing is, I have proof of every financial interaction we ever had. Every split dinner, every utilities payment, every time one of us covered something and got paid back later. I kept everything because I am naturally organized, not because I was planning for this psychotic breakdown. Then yesterday, Claire filed a small claims lawsuit against me. I got served at my new office, which was embarrassing as hell. She is claiming emotional damages and unpaid domestic partnership obligations to the tune of $8,000. My new company's legal team offered to help me respond, which is honestly incredible of them. They looked at the filing and basically said it is completely frivolous, but I still have to show up to court in 3 weeks. The part that is really messing with my head is how completely she has rewritten reality. In her version of events, I am this manipulative user who planned to abandon her all along. She has completely erased the ultimatum, the years of compromising on everything she wanted, the fact that she explicitly chose ending our relationship over even discussing the possibility of long distance. I am starting to understand why people talk about gaslighting, like it is this insidious thing. Because for a minute there, listening to her sob story secondhand through my mom, I actually wondered if I was remembering things wrong. But I have the texts, I have the proof, and I have a life in Seattle that is already better than anything I had in Chicago. Still, I cannot believe someone I loved for 5 years is capable of this level of manipulation and dishonesty. Update 2 Reddit. I am back, and you are not going to believe what happened in court. So the court date finally arrived. I flew back to Chicago because apparently you cannot handle small claims remotely. Took a day off my new job, which honestly felt surreal because my colleagues were like, "Go handle your personal stuff. We have got this," instead of guilting me about missing work. Claire showed up with a binder, like a full 3-inch binder of printed screenshots, highlighted text messages, and what I can only describe as a manifesto about our relationship. Her dad came with her acting as her representative because apparently this was too important for her to handle alone. My company's legal team had prepped me with a simple folder, bank statements showing separate accounts, Venmo history showing split payments, screenshots of the ultimatum conversation, receipts for the rent and deposit I left her. Simple, factual documentation. Claire went first, and honestly, it was like watching someone perform a one-woman show about a relationship I wasn't even in. She claimed I had systematically isolated her from financial independence by pressuring her to let me handle shared expenses. Except I had literal proof that she insisted on splitting everything and keeping our finances separate. She said I abandoned her without notice, completely ignoring the fact that she gave me an ultimatum, and I responded exactly as she demanded. She claimed I took furniture that belonged to both of us, But when the judge asked for receipts proving joint ownership, she had nothing. Because I left everything behind specifically to avoid this kind of drama. Her dad kept trying to interject with speeches about moral obligations and what a real man would do until the judge told him to sit down and stay quiet. When it was my turn, I just handed over the documents, bank statements, texts, receipts. The judge read through everything in about 5 minutes. Then he asked Claire directly, "Miss Morrison, can you show me any evidence of joint financial accounts or agreements?" She stammered something about implicit understandings and emotional investments. He asked, "Do you have documentation showing Mr. Peterson agreed to provide ongoing financial support?" She started crying and said the relationship itself was an implied contract. The judge looked at the ultimatum screenshot and asked, "Is this your phone number, Miss Morrison?" "Yes, but..." "And did you send this message telling Mr. Peterson that if he took the job, the relationship would be over?" I was upset. "I didn't mean did you send this message?" "Yes." Case dismissed. 15 minutes total. Claire completely lost it, screaming about how the legal system doesn't protect women, how I manipulated the evidence, how this proves that men can just abandon their responsibilities without consequences. Her dad had to physically escort her out of the building while she sobbed. But here is the real kicker, the part that actually shocked me. After court, I grabbed coffee with Emily before my flight back to Seattle. She told me something that honestly made my blood run cold. Claire had been calling my old boss, trying to get me blacklisted from Chicago tech companies. She told him I was emotionally unstable and had left her in financial ruin, and that he should warn other employers about my pattern of irresponsible behavior. My old boss, who has known me for 4 years and had always respected my work, apparently listened to her whole speech and then called me. The email was waiting when I got back to Seattle. "Ryan, I got a very strange call from Claire today. I wanted you to know that her behavior was completely inappropriate and honestly made me concerned about her mental state. Also, if you are ever interested in remote contract work, we would love to have you consult on our machine learning projects. Your departure was a loss for us." So Claire's attempt to destroy my professional reputation not only failed, it actually resulted in additional work opportunities. Meanwhile, things in Seattle are fantastic. I started seeing someone. Actually, Maya. She is a UX researcher at a different company. We met through a professional networking event. We disclosed to HR immediately because my company has policies about workplace relationships, and everyone's been completely professional and supportive. Maya knows the whole Claire situation, and her response was basically, "Wow. You dodged a bullet." She cannot understand how anyone would give someone they love an ultimatum like that, instead of trying to work together on a solution. It is honestly refreshing to be with someone who approaches problems as partnership challenges instead of zero-sum competitions. Next update will probably be the final one because Claire seems to be running out of ammunition and I am running out of patience for this drama. The view from my new life keeps getting better. Final update. Okay, Reddit. This is it. The final chapter in the Claire saga, and honestly it is so perfectly awful that I had to share it. First, the good news. Seattle is incredible. The job is everything I hoped it would be. We just got approval for a project that could genuinely save lives. And my stock options hit their first vesting milestone last month. Maya and I are talking about getting an apartment together, which feels healthy and collaborative in a way that is totally different from how things were with Claire. But Claire, oh man. Claire couldn't just let this go. Her social media campaign completely collapsed. That GoFundMe she started for starting over after financial abuse raised $62, mostly from relatives who felt bad for her. Her boutique job fired her for missing shifts while she was processing trauma and posting crying selfies from the bathroom during work hours. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 weeks ago, Claire flew to Seattle. She showed up outside my apartment building at 7 in the morning, looking like she hadn't slept in days, demanding that we have a real conversation about our relationship. I agreed to meet for coffee in public because honestly I wanted to understand what was happening in her head. Part of me was still hoping there was some explanation that would make sense of the past few months. We sat in a Starbucks, and Claire cycled through what felt like a rehearsed list of manipulation tactics. First, I was just testing you. I wanted to see if you had fight for us. I said, "You filed a lawsuit against me, Claire. That wasn't a test. Then, we could start over here. I could find work in Seattle. We could build something new," I said. You spent 3 months telling everyone I am an abusive financial manipulator. There is no coming back from that. Finally, you owe me something after wasting 5 years of my life. That is when I lost patience. I said, I didn't waste your time, Claire. You chose to give me an ultimatum instead of working together on a solution. Every consequence that followed was the direct result of that choice. When it became clear I wasn't going to cave, she shifted tactics completely. Fine, she said. Then I will ruin your reputation here too. I will make sure everyone at your company knows what kind of person you really are. I looked at her across that coffee shop table, this person I had loved for 5 years, and realized I was seeing her clearly for the first time. Not upset, not hurt, not heartbroken, just cold and calculating and willing to destroy someone for not giving her what she wanted. I said, you tried that in Chicago, Claire. People figured out the truth. Do it here, and you will just prove exactly why I left. That is when Maya walked into the coffee shop. We had planned to meet for lunch, but she was early and saw us through the window. Maya walked over, introduced herself politely, and asked if everything was okay. Watching Claire's face when she realized I had already moved on, with someone confident and independent who doesn't consider partnership a zero-sum game, was honestly devastating to witness. Claire stared at Maya for a long moment, then looked back at me and said, you will regret this. But her voice was different, defeated, because I think she finally understood that I wasn't coming back, that her campaigns and lawsuits and manipulation tactics had accomplished nothing except proving I made the right choice. She left the coffee shop, and as far as I know, she flew back to Chicago that day. I haven't heard from her since. The last I heard through mutual friends, she is dating some crypto guy and posting Instagram stories with captions like survivor and rebuilding from toxicity and learning to trust again. I don't wish Claire any harm. I hope she finds happiness and learns to build relationships that don't require controlling other people's major life decisions. But I am also incredibly grateful that I chose my future over someone who saw love as a tool for getting compliance. Because here is what I learned from this whole experience. When someone gives you an ultimatum, believe them. They have already decided their love is conditional. They have already chosen control over partnership. And the right person, the person you are meant to build a life with, doesn't hold your future hostage to get what they want. The right person says this is scary, and I don't love the idea of long distance, but let's figure out how to make this work because your dreams matter too. The right person doesn't file lawsuits when you choose growth over stagnation. The right person doesn't try to destroy your professional reputation out of spite. Maya and I are looking at apartments with mountain views next month. My company just approved the budget for the Phase 2 trials that could help thousands of patients. And every morning I wake up in Seattle. I am grateful that I chose the life I wanted, instead of the life someone else demanded I accept. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to be controlled.